What is up, everybody, and welcome back to episode 15 of From the Interns. Here we are live from Marietta, Georgia, home for winter break, but still out here making episodes. As everybody knows, Georgia did it, 28-7, huge win over Alabama in the SEC championship. I would even argue, I think it's a top four win under Kirby Smart. You put it behind the first natty against Alabama, the Peach Bowl against Ohio State, and the Rose Bowl. I would argue it's that big of a win, that big of a momentum swing heading into this latter half of the season, especially seeing teams like Ohio State go down yesterday. It just shows that everyone is beatable. Everyone had this whole mentality of Ohio State is not human. They can't lose. There's no chance. And then you see that Indiana did it and held them to 10 points. So it was just a big wake-up call, I think, for Georgia fans to realize that this could be a year where Kirby Smart and the program gets it done altogether.
Yeah, I mean, something I've been harping on the last couple of weeks is just the trenches and the way that Georgia's been able to dominate that. And when you look back on the stats, and Alabama has -3 rushing yards, which I think they've only done one other time in their program's history, is pretty impressive that, a team can come in a conference game against the Dawgs and still not be able to establish the run game, which put Ty Simpson in a lot of uncomfortable passing scenarios, but they just weren't able to move the ball enough. So, they're in the playoffs still. We'll obviously get into that a little bit down the road, kind of our opinions on that. But, I mean, it was just complete domination by Georgia against another quality opponent that they faced. I mean, you got Texas a couple weeks ago, dominated that game, held the line of scrimmage against top 25 Georgia Tech. So it's been really good football these last couple weeks from Georgia. There's really nothing you can complain about. I mean, the offense is doing what they need to do. They're establishing the run on their part. And Georgia just looks extremely good right now. And like he might have mentioned earlier, I mean, this is some of the best football we've seen Georgia play in a while. It's one of the best games we've seen Georgia play in a while, in maybe years, you could say. And, it's against a team that Georgia has just not been able to beat the last couple of years, or for a long time for that matter. So that's just a great win against a really good program, rich history there. And just, anytime you can be SEC champions, that in itself feels like no matter what happens the rest of the season, obviously a national title is the goal, but whatever happens the rest of the season, being back-to-back SEC champions is definitely something to look forward to and look at in a good light.
It is definitely. And Mike Bobo in his bag, dare I say. Rod Robinson, first touchdown of the season for him. A play-action boot. No one's expecting it. You got Josh McCray in there. Everyone's expecting the goal line handoff to him, and Rod Robinson slips by, wide open, scores the touchdown there. Absolutely huge. Georgia puts Ty Simpson on his face. Gabe Harris just with a hit that flustered him for the entire game. Punt blocked by Cole Spear, who Kirby has, throughout every interview ever where his name has been brought up, has just talked about how much he's sacrificed and given to this team. And it was just all foot on the gas the entire game. And it was never let loose. It was obvious that the game plan was just step on their faces and keep your foot on their faces, because this is a team that has a history of coming back against Georgia, and there was never more than about 2 minutes where it looked like they even had a chance in this ball game. Like we said last week, the whole idea is beat Georgia Tech on the ground. It's not going to be pretty. You're going to win. You have a dominant win against Charlotte, Texas, Mississippi State in the weeks prior, and like Matthew said, Georgia's been playing their best football in a very long time, and this defense has grown up more than you could possibly imagine at the beginning of the season. You watch that Tennessee game, you're giving up deep balls, all these touchdowns. In this game, Georgia comes in firing, pressure on so many plays, and leaves Alabama scoreless in the last last two quarters of the regular season game and 3 quarters of this SEC championship. Alabama had 0 points. And the game plan was obvious. You're not as scared of the deep ball, so you're just going to attack the quarterback and put pressure in his face. And 2.5 sacks, multiple tackles for loss, -3 rushing yards on the game. You cannot ask for more than that in a game like this.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going back a little bit where you're saying just, Georgia completely dominated from the start, right? I mean, there was a little bit of a slow start for Georgia's offense, and Alabama, came out with some fire. That's fine. But, I mean, it was complete physical domination for 99.9% of that game. And I told people before, I think I maybe told Will this, is that, obviously Alabama's had a good season, right? They're a good football team. They're in the college football playoff, all this different stuff, but it's not an Alabama team that we've seen in the past, right? I mean, you don't have Nick Saban anymore. You don't have some of these big physical guys you've seen before. And I told people, I said, if Georgia goes out there and they hit Alabama in the face from the start, they will lay down and it's ball game from there. And that's exactly what happened, because they're not physical as Georgia. They don't have the resilience as Georgia, even though I think Ty Simpson said they're the most resilient team in college football, which is complete not true. So they get hit in the face, and what do? They just quit playing, and they can't. Even when they came out of halftime, they just completely looked like they were just ready to go back to Tuscaloosa and see if the committee wanted to put them in the college football playoff or not. So that's Alabama's first loss in Atlanta since 2008. So, like I'm saying, this isn't an Alabama team we've seen in recent memory. I think if you talk to an Alabama fan and they're honest with themselves, they'll agree with you. So, it'll be interesting to see how they fare in the playoff, So, but again, their reign in Atlanta is over. It looks like the Dawgs are the team to beat in the SEC for a long time coming. And so it's crazy to see. Just finally, it looks like all this time, Alabama owns Georgia, but I think that has completely come full circle and is starting to change for the good.
Yeah, and if you're a Georgia fan, you've dreamed of this type of win over Alabama for years of your life. We haven't seen something like this in an incredibly long time, if ever. I don't know if there's ever been a blowout win against Alabama, and you just have to be excited with where your team's at. You're going into this with a bye. You get to play either Tulane or Ole Miss, probably Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. And then with that, you're on the side of the bracket where you're likely going to be playing Ohio State in Arizona if you win that game. And like I said, I think that's exactly where you want to be. Indiana showed that this Ohio State team is beatable. And Fernando Mendoza is a very good quarterback on the other side of the bracket, so it might be better to wait to play him towards the end there. But, I mean, just Gunnar Stockton, 3 passing touchdowns. I would venture to say, not that he has the statistics to win the Heisman, but I would venture to say he had the most Heisman-worthy conference championship game out of any of the quarterbacks. He just did everything he needed to do. He continues to just tuck the ball and just go for – he dives for every play, no matter if he's close to the first down or not. He's getting as many yards as he can. He's laying his head down, churning his legs, and just going for it. And you've got Dylan Bell touchdown, Nate Frazier touchdown, and Zachariah Branch with the dagger at the end of the game. I mean, like we've been saying, it's just complete domination. And granted, Georgia was given the ball on the short side of the field many times.
I was about to say, speaking of the Zach Branch touchdown, right before that, Alabama with a very, I thought, questionable call. It was like 8 minutes left in the game. They're only down 2 scores, and they go for it on their own 18, I think it was. Yep. I really thought that was extremely ambitious by DeBoer to try to do that. I mean, yeah, I guess, there's times to be aggressive, but on your own 18-yard line, I think is not the time for that. I mean, that was the game. With 8 minutes left, they said, we're going to put one play in the hands of the game, and they didn't get it. Yep. They threw a across-the-hashes pass to, I guess, their best receiver, but it never stood a shot. Like a play that you would dial up on fourth and 2.
I was sitting next to one of the people on the field with a camera was next to me and was like, I didn't even realize that was 4th down. The way they threw that, it looks like it's 3rd and 2 and you're just trying to chuck it and get to the next down. Right. That did not seem like a do or die play at all for them. It was instantly snap, pressure in Ty Simpson's face. He's slinging it, getting rid of it, and there's no chance there.
That's just extremely, extremely aggressive. I mean, we saw in the Iron Bowl where they went for it on 4th down trying to get a touchdown when they could have just kicked a field goal and taken the lead, and it worked out for them. But on that play, you saw a little bit of creativity on the play design. But on that play, I just saw an out route in what was probably man coverage. I haven't gone back and looked. But it just didn't really look like, usually you might see a jumbo package come in where they'll do some kind of play action or something like that, or maybe even just run the ball on 4th and short. But they threw it across the field on a very long pass. I don't know. You could sit there and talk about that all day, I guess. But that was
against Georgia DBs who were all over it the entire
questionable
time.
call there for DeBoer, but
Yep.
he'll get the chance to avenge that in the playoffs. So
He
we'll see what happens.
And granted, all of this happened on Kirby Smart's 10-year anniversary being head coach at the University of Georgia. He was hired on December 6th, 2015, and on December 6th, 2025, he gets his biggest win over Alabama and possibly the program's biggest win over Alabama. And you just can feel how much this game means to every single person in that locker room. We know we said earlier it might be better to miss the SEC championship and rest, but at the end of the day, it's still it's probably the second biggest thing in the sport that you can win behind the national title is that SEC title. And you've got Texas in the SEC now, Oklahoma in the SEC now, 16 very competitive teams, and it's still Alabama and Georgia at the top, and Georgia comes out on top.
Right. I mean, yeah, like you were saying, 16 competitive teams. I mean, even the worst team in the SEC, I think 2-10 Arkansas, I'm pretty sure almost all of their losses in the SEC were by a score. So it's all these teams can compete against one another, and they can beat each other on any given day if they want to. So it just shows how deep this conference is, and just to be able to be the team that lifts the trophy at the end of the season in Mercedes-Benz Stadium is just extremely, extremely impressive. And I think, people can say how the Big Ten is good, and obviously they have the 1 and 2 seeds in the playoff, which I think is a complete joke, to be honest with you, that Georgia isn't the 2 seed. But, all that will be settled at the end of the day, and I think you're going to end up seeing SEC teams in the title game no matter if it's Georgia or Oklahoma or whoever that might be. I think there will be SEC representation late in this playoff, and I think an SEC team will win it. So that's just what it's going to come down to at the end of the day. So
yeah, and gosh, where was I going with it? Kirby. You were talking about, or we were talking about just the SEC in general, and Kirby after the game said, "I'm getting on my soapbox here real quick," and just mentioned how all of the coaches, or he said a majority of the coaches on of that conference, of the SEC, are concerned about next season and playing those 9 SEC conference games throughout the season, because then you're generating 8 more SEC losses because it's 16 teams, and you're going to have significantly more teams going 9-3 and having a chance at missing the playoff, going 8-4 because of that additional game. And just think about, as a Georgia fan, if you're sitting here after that Texas win, and instead of Charlotte the next week, you have to go play LSU. Let's just say that. How much more tough is that going to be on your team as a whole? Your physicality is going to just be I mean, you're going to deal with injuries in a game like that because of how physical all of these games tend to be. And instead of subbing Gunnar Stockton out in the second quarter, you're going to play him through 3, probably all 4, and have to deal with none of this experience of younger players getting in. It just has so many repercussions that are concerning these coaches. And therefore, when you hear something like that stated by the best coach in the SEC and saying that a multitude of them are feeling the same way, it generates concern, I think, as a fan of the sport.
Well, what it's going to do is it's going to eliminate your, Ohio State, Texas games, because why would a team like Georgia or a team like Texas or a team even like Vanderbilt, why would they go schedule these high-powered non-conference games when they already got to play 9 SEC games? It's going to completely get rid of that. So what you're going to start seeing is Georgia playing, 9 conference games. They'll play Georgia Tech, and then they'll play, 2 other teams that aren't as high quality. So you're just going to – and already, there's already been the argument that Sarkisian made about how, why should we go up to Ohio State and, maybe lose to them week 1 and not make the playoff? That's a completely different thing to talk about. But it's just, these week 1 matchups that everybody loves to see are going to go away because of this. And that's another thing that's kind of a shame to see is you're just going to see, your top teams, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma, all these teams are just going to start playing very weak non-conference games because they don't have a choice, because every other game on their schedule is going to be against a very, very good team. So that's another unfortunate thing that's going to come out of this.
Yeah. And one more thing about just Georgia in general is we've both talked about since covering Georgia, this win yesterday may have been the happiest we have seen Kirby Smart after a game. Just into the game, the whole ceremony, the press conference, everything, him walking off the field, interacting with fans, you could feel this sort of sense of relief out of just him and honestly the entire fan base, the entire team, because he was on the stage and said, our fans have gone through a lot. They've felt a lot of heartbreak, but not today. And I think that's just a statement that is resounding in how impactful, once again, a game like that is for Georgia as a program, as a fan base, and just all of the above. And to close off our talk on Georgia, I had to bring the pizza home. So had to. When in doubt, pizza performance of the week is going to be here. Today, we have our first ever 10 out of 10 pizza. We're going with just golden crust, golden cheese, pepperoni pizza. Undercarriage is perfect. It's been put in the oven for no less than 5 seconds or no more than 5 seconds, the perfect amount. And it's just one of the greatest pizzas you've ever had. You've got some ranch on the side to dip it in, and you're just feeling relieved because you were so hungry and you are now so full from one of the best pizzas you've ever had.
That's good. Nice.
Yep.
So obviously, you could talk about this all day long. I've got a lot of strong opinions on them. I'll try to fit them all in. I'm sure you do too. But college football playoff comes out. It's official. Biggest thing really is Notre Dame is out. They're ranked ahead of Miami for, I think, every selection show maybe, or all of them, because they were in a different quadrant of teams they're looking at, whatever that means. I don't know. But at the end of the day, Miami gets their bid. I guess they finally saw the head-to-head matchup. Maybe they didn't see it on their little computers before that. But now Miami's
missed that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
But now Miami's in the playoff, and if Notre Dame, that's got to be pretty frustrating. You win 10 straight games, but at the end of the day, when you play a team and you don't beat them, I don't really know why you expect to be in over them. So I think the committee made the right call there. That was a pretty good choice for them.
Yeah, and I feel like the only call you can argue there is that Alabama making it. And, of course, this is a Georgia podcast. People are going to be biased and hate Alabama. But when you look at it from the last 5 or 6 games that they have played, they're not a top 12 team in the country.
They've lost 2 of their last 4.
And that's why I think – that's why I think it's even more shocking that Georgia lost to this team in Sanford in the first place, because we saw them lose to FSU. Absolutely embarrassing loss. FSU finished 5-7 and is making a bowl game because of Kansas State opting out of theirs and FSU having the highest FPI of any 5-7 team. But you see them lose to Oklahoma, beat Tennessee in what was closer than the final score showed. Barely went over Auburn. I mean, they had a 17-point lead, but tried to slip that one away, and then just get absolutely physically and all-around dominated by Georgia in the SEC championship on a neutral site this time instead of in a harder spot at Georgia. And could it go to the fact that Georgia has gotten significantly better? Yes. But when you're losing a game by 3 touchdowns – and the committee has always said, we don't impact anyone for playing in their conference title. This is the first time we've seen that, because you look at 2023 Georgia, number 1 the entire season.
Back-to-back natty champs.
Back-to-back natty champs.
Trying to
number 1 the entire season. Lose their first game to Alabama by 3. Or 3 or 7. Between 3 and 7.
Game. It's a
close game. Get knocked down to number 6 and play FSU.
Yes.
This is that's what I don't get.
That argument's invalid.
About this whole argument.
Also, look at BYU, right? They had a similar result in their conference game. Imagine if they never played Texas Tech in the regular season. They probably would have made the playoff.
Yep.
If that game just wasn't scheduled, they went 12-0 in their first game of the year, or their first time playing Texas Tech was yesterday, and they lost whatever they lost by 20, whatever it was. They'd probably be in the playoff. I think that's a completely invalid argument to sit there and say you shouldn't be punished. Well, you can look back on a lot of different cases where teams have been punished for playing in their conference title game and losing. So I just think that's a completely invalid argument. And I genuinely think that Alabama is not one of the top 10 teams to get above that group of 5 threshold that they had to be to stay in the, at-large bids. I think that's completely invalid.
My whole thought is if you're going to make that argument, keep it consistent. Either make that argument and you keep these teams in every time or you don't. There's no one side. You don't get to pick and choose which teams you want to keep in. Oh, the Alabama logo has to make it because it's Alabama. They're one of the greatest teams ever in college football. And that's sort of what this feels like a little bit. Granted, Alabama's favored playing Oklahoma somehow at Oklahoma at the moment. But I don't see that team having a chance at a run. And we knew Miami was going to make it. ACC is not going to leave the team out. And 7-5 Duke, ACC champions, aren't making it. They lost 5 games. It's simple. You gotta take care of business and win your games. And that whole argument of just conference games don't matter doesn't make sense when the differential is that drastic.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the bracket right now, and it's like you got teams like Ole Miss, right? They just hired their new coach. Maybe they got a little bit of fire under them. You got A&M. They lost to Texas. They seem like they might be a hungry team. Miami finally gets into the playoff. They finally get over Notre Dame. I guarantee you they're going to be fired up. You got your group of 5s. They're ready to roll. You got Oregon. They got something to prove in the Big Ten, show that they're one of the better teams in their conference, even though they didn't make their title game. You got Oklahoma, who had a really good end of their season. They beat LSU a couple weeks ago to clinch their spot. And then you got Alabama, who has lost 2 of their last 4 games, and honestly just in no way, shape, or form yesterday looked like they had any sort of life on their sideline.
No.
At no point. I mean, and to beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl, which, holy crap, they played at Jordan-Hare. That's 5 times of a win. Auburn probably dropped 20 passes in that game, and they only won by a touchdown. And in the last drive for Auburn, they fumbled the ball to lose. I mean, you cannot sit there and tell me that this team is one of the top 10 teams in the country. It's just completely mind-blowing to me, and I think it's really a shame, and I think Notre Dame should be in. I think if Notre Dame and Alabama played, Jeremiah Love would probably rush for 200 rushing yards, and Alabama would once again rush for less than 50 rushing yards against a pretty good Notre Dame defense. So I think it's complete SEC bias. I know we're SEC fans, and it's might be good to see that, but I think it's complete. It's ridiculous that they're in the playoff. I don't care that they lost their conference title game and shouldn't be punished. I think
they don't
it's completely ridiculous.
Lose by 3 touchdowns, don't move in outs.
I know. Didn't even move down. We didn't talk about that. They didn't even move down. It's ridiculous.
Vanderbilt, I would argue, obviously, this is getting way, way beyond where we're going and where we're looking here. But Vanderbilt has been playing some of the best football as of late. And, yes, they have the head-to-head to Alabama. So, yes, Alabama deserves it over them. They make the conference title. But, I mean, if you're going strictly off best 12 teams, I think Vanderbilt's one of the best 12 teams in the country right now. And that's without saying that Notre Dame isn't in here. And they were 4th best odds to win the national championship as of, 5 days ago?
Mm-hmm. And the AP poll has Alabama below Miami and Notre Dame. Also, keep in mind, Alabama lost by 2 touchdowns in Week 1 to Mike Norvell's Florida State Seminoles.
Oh, yeah.
But it was on the road. It's a tough place to play.
Yep,
I get it.
Yep.
So,
chop.
All good. But,
all right.
Yeah, that's about enough for the playoff. It's going to be a really good playoff. We were talking about this.
This bracket is
It lines
incredible.
up really well. There's going to be a lot of very good round 1 games. Tulane Ole Miss, that's a cool one. Just, you got Tulane.
Probably the worst one.
Yeah,
but
it's just still cool in the fact that,
best color matchup,
Right,
best jersey matchup, I think, that could maybe possibly be played. Those are some
cool
good.
In the sense it's good stories. You got a brand new coach at Ole Miss. You got Tulane, the group of 5 coming in there as the underdogs.
And Summerall is playing
right,
for his guys before he heads over to Florida.
Right. So, yeah, and then, Also, I say it'd be cool because I told him earlier I think it'd be cool if Georgia played Tulane in New Orleans.
That would be
It'd be a home
electric.
game for Tulane, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. But anyways,
And Matthew did say earlier he thinks we should be 2. I think we should be 2 as well. But the 3 seed is kind of the better poll.
Yeah.
Because you're playing Ole Miss, which you've already beat. Oh, it's hard to beat the same team twice. Fine. Clip me on this. I don't care. And then you get to go on to either Miami, A&M, or Ohio State, and any of those games, it's just this bracket is it's the first time I've looked at the 12-team playoff and been like, okay, that might have been the right choice. Because all along it's, what are we doing? I mean, respectfully to James Madison and Tulane, those teams are never going to win these games. But you have to put them in because they earned it and they got in fair and square. There's no arguing those teams. But this just the Alabama-Oklahoma game is going to be close. Or presumably Oregon and Texas Tech is going to be a great game. And then Indiana over either Alabama or Oklahoma, I'm sure.
It's a great game.
I mean, every game is pretty much every game after the first round, it's going to be anyone can win.
I'm just saying, I'd keep an eye on Oklahoma. I think they're a big-time sleeper. Them and Oregon. I honestly think my prediction right now is that Oregon and Oklahoma are going to play in the semifinals against each other. I think Oklahoma beats Bama. I think Oklahoma beats Indiana. And then I honestly think Oregon runs the table and makes it to the semifinals as well. So, there's going to be a lot of upsets. Obviously, that would have to happen to get that way. But I honestly think it's true. I mean, you got Oklahoma. They've been through the gauntlet of the SEC. They've played a tough schedule. And, I just think the SEC is going to beat the Big Ten in that scenario. And, I don't know. I think Oklahoma and Oregon are the teams to keep an eye on in the playoffs as teams that, honestly, nobody's talking about at all. Like, I've heard nothing about Oklahoma at all, or Oregon for that matter. So I'd keep an eye on those two teams. They're kind of flying under the radar right now. So I'd also Miami. I mean, there is no way they don't have a lot of energy going into the playoffs, considering they were literally pleading to make the playoffs, and they finally get in on the last day. So it's going to be a lot of fun watching these games.
That's my pick. I think Oklahoma upsets Indiana, plays in the semifinal game against Texas Tech, and then I've got Texas Tech going to the Natty. That Texas Tech team has continued to just fire on all cylinders and never looked back since their first loss. And on the Georgia side of things, I think Miami beats A&M. Early prediction there. I just, for some reason, like Matthew said, I think there's no reason they're not going to come out with just an incredible amount of energy. A&M will too. They're coming off a loss. It's a little bit of a wake-up. But both these teams are – Miami was out of it for a majority of the season.
Yeah,
and I think Miami could potentially upset Ohio State. But right now I've got Ohio State, Georgia in the Fiesta Bowl. And give me Georgia versus Texas Tech in the national championship. That's my early prediction.
My prediction is Georgia and Oregon. I think that's going to be the Natty. But what I think helps Miami a lot is it's a noon kick. So you'll have Kyle Field. It'll obviously be really, really loud, but it's going to be an 11 a.m. local time kick. So those fans won't have as much time to get ready for that one under the lights. It'll be, early kick. So I think that helps Miami a lot, considering, they can kind of be the ones that brings the energy just for their team, rather than, the 12th man getting into things, as the afternoon rolls on.
Yep.
But yeah, this is all you want if you're a college football fan. I mean, it's just, you're going to have really, really, really good football for the next month, regardless of even if that's outside the college football playoff, as the NFL rolls into the postseason and all that stuff. But I mean, yeah, this is what it's all about. This is what it comes down to. We've got, some of the best teams in college football that are going to be battling it out in the first round, and then they're going to move on and play some of those conference champs, and it's just going to be good football for a really long time.
Yeah, it will be. And that about wraps up that aspect. We have one lock of the week for our big Army-Navy game coming this Saturday.
It's a classic.
It is an absolute classic. Give me Navy.
Give me Navy, and it's going to be a 9-7 final, and they'll probably be 500 rushing yards and 20 passing yards.
Yep. I mean, if there's a passing play over 50 yards, I'll give everyone that drops a comment with their score prediction a high five. So,
Yeah, but
Big
give me
big
Navy.
stakes there.
Give me Navy.
Big stakes there. Give me Navy.
Beat Army.
Give me Navy to cover too.
I don't even know what this
I
is,
think it's
but
5.5.
cool.
But yeah, that about wraps up episode 15. We're probably going to be taking next week off because I don't think we want to do a full episode and travel just to talk about the Army Navy game.
We'll
But
probably have one before
we'll
the
have
first
one.
round.
We'll have one before the
Maybe a full bracket breakdown.
yeah
would
full
be
bracket
kinda cool.
breakdown coming soon. Episode 16 probably in 2 weeks or so. But we appreciate everyone watching. Make sure to subscribe. Comment your prediction for Army Navy down below. Closest one, if there's not a passing play over 50 yards, closest prediction also gets a high five. And we're giving away 3 Onward Reserve polos at 500 subscribers. So make sure to subscribe. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.